You're here, which means that you've found spirit crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, and welcome back to another Cosmic Energy episode. I'm Emily from Emily and Her Stars and Things That Make You Go Woo.
And I'm Andrea from Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs.
We're so excited to have you back as we dive into Aquarius season and 2026. Friends, we said it was going to be spicy, and it is living up to its potential already. The exciting thing is, well, exciting? I'll say that with a question mark. We are heading into one of the most active periods for the year. So yeah, before we dive into all of that, let's do a little recap. How have you been since literally solstice, Capricorn season?
You know what? It's been kind of a mixed bag, I think, for me. I think I've had some positive movement. I've had some interesting opportunities sort of like floating around. I've had a little bit of creativity, but then there's also been a lot of the like, okay, what am I doing? And a little bit of the panic and a little bit of the seeing what's happening in the outer world. And I think it has been a bit of maybe a bit of a spiral where it's like, there's a little bit of absorbing the things that are around you and a little bit of that damper. Like, I feel like there was like a wet blanket sort of energy, like maybe around the new year. I felt like even though like it was like, okay, yeah, we're celebrating and stuff, but like inside I was just sort of like, I don't know, there's some sort of like weird energy here. But I feel like it's turning around now. Like I think I can feel it shifting. So maybe that's getting closer to Aquarius. Maybe this active energy is going to break up some of that. Maybe it was a bit of stagnant energy or something.
I love that you use the term wet blanket. I completely agree. So I felt a weird energy shift in November for myself. And if I've already talked about this, just fast forward. But Uranus has been impacting my chart heavily, directly over my sun and moon. And I have noticed when Uranus retrograded out of Gemini back into Taurus, and I felt it. And to me, it was that wet blanket feel of going to sleep for the winter, stagnation, wake me when it's over. And when solstice hit, I actually had the flu for a day and a half and didn't really feel like my energy came back. I had had my flu shot and like all the things. I was technically fine, but there was this emotional heaviness, just a very wet blanket feeling. To me, it felt like Christmas and New Year's in some way. And tired, oh my goodness, so tired. Just kind of took a while to get motivated to do much of anything. My Christmas tree is still up, full disclosure. It will be coming down, I promised my husband. But we've had weird storms. It's just been the most unusual Capricorn season. And I do think, we are starting this train, this backup of planets are meeting each other. And it has started now in Capricorn. And I think feeling Mars and Mercury and Venus and the sun and the moon all together in Capricorn within just a few degrees of each other, there's a weight to it. It's like this lead weight that kind of has us, I don't know, it feels like it's on the bottom of my shoes almost. Like I know I want to go. I'm starting to feel the mental anticipation and maybe excitement to get moving, but it's like getting the rest of me to go with has been difficult.
Yeah, I think I definitely relate to that specifically. Like I am a Capricorn and I have like it is making me feel like I want to do all the things. But I think because I got so behind, not necessarily behind, but I was in that stagnant energy where I was just sort of thinking of the idea of what I was going to do, but I wasn't actually doing the things. And now that I have the energy to do the things, but there's so much that I have to do before I get to the projects I want to do, that it's like weird, frustrating circle where it's like I am getting ahead, I'm doing stuff, but it's like all the stuff I'm like, my brain is already 10 steps past it. So it's hard to like rein myself back in to be like, no, okay, we're still at this stage. We can't get there yet. And I feel like the collective almost has that feeling where it's like we all know where we want to go, but like we're still at this stage, 10 steps behind. And it has that feeling where it's like I should be so much further ahead, which is classic Capricorn energy. But I think it is just something that's sort of like maybe like a lens that we're all sort of experiencing the energy through, is that like I know where I should be, but here I am. It's like it's really hard to like sit in that energy when you're not actually moving forward in the way you want to be.
And I think too, the anticipation that has built around 2026, like we can feel it in the air. So many people online are like, I'm not sleeping. I feel like something's coming. I had the same feeling before the pandemic in 2020. Like there's all of these kind of anxiety inducing feelings. In fact, when I was at my therapist last week, I was like, I am having anxiety about this year. So recognizing whatever is coming up for you as well, listeners, and to just be aware that I think so many of us are feeling that. Anyone who is particularly energy sensitive, to be kind to yourself, give yourself the room to rest a little more if you need to, and to truly, I say disengage, not from a standpoint of turn it off and ignore it, but we are really going to have to get crystal clear about what we're willing to put into our energy, because that's going to affect then how we're moving through the day. I was to the point where the first thing I would do in the morning is scroll social media to see if anyone died overnight. There were moments where, if that's really the first thing I'm looking at in the morning, okay, I'm not going to turn on the news. I'm going to be very mindful about the few minutes that I do check in, what I have the capacity for, where is my action going, what can I do to help, and then truly getting back to my joy, because that, like you said, the opportunities are coming with that. When you were stepped into printmaking and now expanding your community, and there's so many exciting things coming for you, I can feel it. It comes from that place of, yeah, being in the happy, being in your joy.
Yeah, and I think too, like the phrase like joy is resistance. And I think the more we fill ourselves up, the more energy we have for resistance too. I think that's something that keeps coming back around, on TikTok and all the places where I'm really like witnessing how people are reacting to this energy. And they're doing it from a human standpoint, right? They're not looking at the astrology and saying this is how I'm going to act, but I think they don't realize. I think this is where like Emily has said many times, like astrology is a science in a way because it's looking at the past, it's looking at patterns. And I think that's one of the patterns that I've seen is that people are going back into a lot of the crafts and activities and things that really bring them joy. And then they have the capacity to hold more in the collective as well. Like they are able to do more things to support people and they're finding ways to reach out. And there's people that are building community more by like getting to know their neighbors. And like, I think that is a really beautiful thing to be witnessing considering the world we're in right now. I think it seems very small, and I think that's what I think it sort of ties into. I don't know if it's something that we said in the last couple episodes. I'm not sure. The last few months are a blur, but one of the energies I keep thinking is like the more energy we put into the small things of like the small little bits of connection that we have, that actually creates like this, like I can see it as like a web almost of like this connection. It's like I'm obsessed with anything to do with trees and like their whole underground systems. And that's what it's showing me right now as I'm talking. Spirit's showing it to me. This isn't something I had planned, but it's like showing up in my head where like all of these subtle cues, like if the more you know someone, the more you can see their reactions and what it might mean. And so they're kind of showing me like the more we get to know our community and who's in the community, you don't have, it doesn't have to be a big announcement if something's being put out there. Like there's that like subtle shift through the community where people can like get information or, provide support or like if someone needs support, they don't have to like put a big red flag out. Like, they can just like whisper it to someone and they'll know who in the community has those resources. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of that like grassroots energy show up in so many ways, especially in the cities and places where it's more urgent. But I think in general, I just have seen a lot more stories about people like meeting a neighbor they've, lived near for a decade and they're just now getting to know how similar they are. And like, I think in small ways, like even like I was thinking, like I'll teach a class once in a while and it's like maybe there's three people in that class, but then those three people, know people or those three people had a big impact from that. And like there's something about like you never know what your impact is going to be. But if you're doing something that you just know is natural or brings you joy or is something that is like natural to you, then there's a reason for that. And it does have a lasting impact and you just don't know what that's going to be.
I think that's the perfect segue to move into talking about Aquarius season and what we're on the verge of, because Aquarius is a tricky sign, and it's one of those that has dual planets ruling it. It's got these sort of paradoxical energies. So let's break it down. Um, Aquarius comes, it's the sustained heart of winter, right? Particularly here in the northern hemisphere, it's the sustained summer. If you're in the southern hemisphere, so this is where we are noticing particularly the light of the day changing, but it's still quiet. Like there aren't big flashy movements. Here in the north, we're still cold. In the south, it's still hot. You're still in that sustained energy. At this point, we've moved past Capricorn's, great focus on responsibility. Love it. Survival, all the things. And now the energy is turning more towards ideas and vision. And what I love is that traditionally, Capricorn and Aquarius were ruled both by Saturn. So then you look at these two signs and you're like, how is this possible? What do they possibly have in common? And one of the things I love about Aquarius is that it's actually Saturn's trick is to know the structures in the system so well, know the rules, that you know where to bend them just enough to get through something faster, to make a shortcut, to break the rule for the betterment of the system by using the system against it almost in some ways. So there's this feeling about, we're looking at perspective, we're looking at the bigger picture. And Aquarius, then when you bring in Uranus, it brings in a different perspective. Uranus actually rotates, right? It rolls instead of spins. So it moves even through the sky differently than any of our planets. Aquarius likes to look at the systems we're part of, the communities, the networks, the shared goals. And it's really deeply connected to the collective through the idea of being a strong individual. So again, there's that push-pull energy. And that is so much the tension that we are going to really notice this year, because we're going to have so much emphasis, including Pluto, in Aquarius. So there's these two opposite impulses, right? This responsibility versus like the rebellion, the breakout, to question the system, but to also be responsible for making it better. You can't just break it apart and leave it with nothing. So if we're finding weakness, essentially, in order to bring about change, then we also have to understand that Uranus wants us to ask a different question. This is the progress, the innovation, different ways of thinking about these old rules. And if we have the courage to look at it that way, it can be really uncomfortable. This is where Aquarius is like the only one with purple hair in the room. And yeah, I don't care. Or I'm finding all the other people that have purple hair and we're making our own purple hair group because there needs to be a group to support each other. But underneath it all, I think this is what's so beautiful about Aquarius is it's like, how do you live your truth without cutting yourself off from the world around you? And this is at the heart in so many ways of what I think we're hopefully going to learn collectively. It's not black and white. It's not red and blue. It's not us versus them. It's where do we find the common ground again? The sun being in Aquarius, it's not its happiest. The sun rules Leo, which is Aquarius's opposite. So there it feels exalted. It's the center of our own little solar system. It's very happy. It has all of its weight and pull there. And in Aquarius, it's being asked to be a team player and not be at the center. So there's a push-pull that comes automatically with the season. And when Aquarius is out of balance, this is that feeling of detachment, of pulling away from others. So a lot of this season is about belonging without diving into and disappearing completely into a group, or how to find your people and not lose yourself in that group, or just not be part of a group at all and try to be, like Leo, the sun all by itself out here is the pay attention to me. I'm going to be my own group. It's going to be hard. And we have Not to jump into next week already, but the very first week of Aquarius season, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 planets that are going to conjunct or cross Pluto in Aquarius. So this is unprecedented. This is one of those moments that we look at for this year, and it's like we don't even have words for how this is going to unfold because we can't find it happening before.
That's such an intense energy to be going into. And I think, like Emily said, it's so interesting that February is such a central month for the year because usually, I mean, in the last few years, it's been more like mid year. I mean, I feel like that's still going to be a big energy, but like it's been like closer to like May, June ish when we start to actually see things pick up. And it feels like we're just sleeping until then, but it's such a huge wake up call. And I think, in a way, if you think about it, for what's happening now, having a big wake up call when people aren't expecting it is probably the best way to get their attention in a way. So it's almost like cosmically this has been planned for like this age of Aquarius energy that we've all been like wondering what it was going to feel like, when it was going to come in. Like it's such a general big energy that it's not something that was like on this day it's going to be the age of Aquarius, you know? It's sort of like a more general generational sort of energy. So it does feel like February being such a pivotal month for the year when in the time that we're in makes a lot of sense because you kind of need that collective movement and awareness for something to actually start to shift and change and, you know, reflect more of what people are truly seeing in the vision. And I think, like Emily said, the more you have that collective energy and like that vision together of the other side of it. You can't just break down a system and then leave it. It's like the more we can all individually be living our truths and then see where the overlap is in that, as opposed to like right now how things are. Let's try and find a common, you know, goal here. That's probably not going to happen. But if we all look forward to say, okay, if I was being totally honest with myself with who I should be and not thinking about how other people would perceive me, then what would that look like? And then if we took that vision, I think we'd find a lot more common energies. So I think that's more so is that this time around is not going to be a whole complete overhaul of the collective. I just feel like it's going to be very much an internal battle for people, seeing what's happening, kind of looking inside and saying, how do I actually feel about this? If people didn't know I was this, you know, X or Y, you know, if people just saw me as a human and I wanted to be known for how I was going to react to this, what would my reaction be? What would I do? How would I support people? How would I show up? And I think that is the awakening sort of energy we're going to have. And so the people that have been talking about, like all of us that have been in this space for a long time, like when is it going to be that we're going to have this wave of people that are going to be coming in for readings or wanting to learn things? I think this is going to be the start of it for that reason because people aren't going to go public necessarily with this new self. They're going to be looking for support to just figure it out and find how they get their grounding energy again because they can't go to their usual community. And I think this is where those like new communities, new connections, like that's why I said it's going to be quiet at first. It's going to be an underground sort of like just the people who know, and you know, like word of mouth and like very grassroots. Like I think that root energy is for a reason, like that below ground. It's not going to be mushrooms yet. We're not going to be seeing the things pop up. We're not going to be seeing the sprouts yet. We're not going to be seeing the external above ground stuff. It's just going to be a lot of like that energy where you just meet someone you just know you can mention it. Like I know this even for myself. If I go out in the community, like I do readings and stuff, but I don't push it on people. I talk about my art and I have it on my website. I have both on my website. So people go to my website for the art. They're going to see the other stuff. And it's interesting in the community, like there's people that I talk to and I interact with regularly. And it's just been in the last month or so where they've asked about the other work that I do. They've brought it up. They've noticed that on my business card as opposed to the other. And I think that's how it has to happen is you have to give people the space to come to it themselves. You can't like tell them they should do something a certain way because like none of us want to hear that when we're in the space that we're in, right? And I think that's sort of what I'm feeling is going to be the shift as we go into this Aquarius season.
I felt like I could just turn the mic off and wash my hand. Like, good, we're done. That's the energy we needed to. But it was interesting, really, what you said, this idea of if we are all living our best possible versions of ourselves, and you imagine that all of that turns into a Venn diagram, right? And we are all seeing where we actually overlap as humans without all of the other masks and nonsense that we've tried to see the world through a very specific lens, and we're taking all of that away. And there's so much energy, especially this first couple of weeks, but particularly for all of Aquarius season, because Pluto is now residing there. And Pluto is, Andrea and I were talking, that eighth house energy, the secrets, the money, the wealth, the things that are underground networks that need our attention. We need to be aware of them. It's like, I know my mortgage is working for me and that money is out there doing its thing. And yet it isn't part of my everyday life, but it has me connected to my home, to the mortgage lender, to the insurance, to the state, like all the places it has to be connected, but yet it's still my home. So there's an awareness of how we are moving through and what are all of our connections. And I think too, particularly with the internet, we saw with the Cancer moon at the beginning of the month, an entire country lost their internet overnight. It was turned off. And what would we do collectively if any of us were, for any reason, if our internet was to disappear? How do you go through your day? What does that look like? Does your business rely on it? Do you rely on it for the news, for connecting with friends and loved ones? We are building new mycelium networks in this energy for sure.
Yeah, that like in-person connection. I think we got so far. I think it was for a good reason in COVID that we all connected globally, because now we have the system set up where we are aware of what's happening in other countries and other perspectives, people we would not have met in real life. I think we do need that, but we went too far into that where we're almost living as like virtual versions of ourselves. And then in our day-to-day life, we can't have a conversation with the person we see every day, and like we've gone so far in that direction. And I think we're coming back around. Like I know myself, even like I loved like not COVID happening and all the bad stuff. I loved being home and just doing whatever I felt like doing for a while, because I'm so introverted. I was in my glory. I was like, yes, I can just pull some cards. I can make some art. I can go for a walk, like all my favorite things. And no one's going to think I'm crazy for not wanting to go out to big events, right? Everyone thinks, yeah, good idea. You should be doing that. But I think now, like finding myself so introverted, being like, okay, I want to go out and teach classes. I want to like connect and create a new community. Very outside of my like typical energy the last while, but also my Venus is in Aquarius. So how did I forget this? This is literally, why I think I have that. I think it is to pull me out of my Capricorn self. Like I have a Cancer moon too, very hibernating energy. So like I don't have a lot of fire or things to pull me out of that. I have a lot of planets in Sagittarius, but they're also like, the more outer planets. They're not personal planets. So I only experience them once in a while where they really get me fired up, and they're in my 12th house. So even then it's a little dark. I'm not getting a lot of outside, let's go out and celebrate energy. So this Venus in Aquarius is what connects me to people. I find the other people that have a little bit of a similar vibe to me, and it connects me to community. Like I keep saying, it'd be a lot easier for me to go where there already is an established community of what I want to do. And I love those places. I feel comfortable there, but there's this responsibility piece in me that feels like now that I've recognized that there isn't that here, I feel like I have to stay here and build it in a way, like with other people, obviously, not just myself, but like pulling people together that have these similar things. Other people have started that here, but I feel like that's why I found it, because I want to help continue to move that forward. And I think that's where that, like, where you're talking about Saturn, I think that's where like that responsibility piece, it's like very different for each piece of myself, but I feel like I have a bit of both, where it's like, I want to help amplify the energy of this community and this community thing, and that Capricorn responsibility. I already spoke about it. I already said I wanted to do it. So now I can't give up on it. I have to keep doing it no matter how hard it is, even though it would be way easier to go somewhere else where it's already done. I have to do the hard thing now. But I feel like this year, yeah, we're going to see a lot of grassroots in-person stuff popping up again, like, support groups, clubs. I feel like bring back the clubs, bring back the book clubs, bring back the card nights, bring back those simple things that people used to be like playing dart, going out and playing darts, pool, like all those in-person things I think are going to have a resurgence. And I wouldn't be surprised if people's garages are filled with people all summer this year just for that reason, right?
Makes me wanna join a bowling league. I always thought it would be fun to have matching shirts on a bowling league, and I kinda always wanted my own bowling ball, I'm not gonna lie. Alright, so I'm dying to know what you pulled for January 19th through the 24th.
Okay, so for that first week, I have a page, which I found interesting because I think that there's a lot coming in that we're going to be finding out. This is the Page of Pentacles. So, this is the page that says you have everything you need, you have the resources, let's figure out what to do with it. But it's also this energy of like some information coming in around your finances. So, around career, around, I don't know, just community. But it's very much, I feel like, a personal energy where it's like you're just getting a piece of information that helps you figure out what your next step is, that helps you figure out what your next physical, tangible thing that you can do is. And I think we all need that after I feel like the holidays, that energy, that hibernation energy kind of extended through most of Capricorn, like we were just talking about, where we don't know where the action is. And I think this is what sort of gets us going, where it's like maybe even as just figuring it out this week and taking one small step, but it's that recognition of like, okay, let's regroup. What are my resources? What is it? What do I already have? And in order for me to get from point A to point B, like the comforting energy of this is kind of like recognizing, okay, this is the goal I have. This is what I want to do. And look, I already have all these pieces. I just have to put them in a row. Like I just have to sort of like get them in action again. I already know how to do this. I already know how to do that. This person has this that I could borrow. I already know that I would just have to do XYZ, and these are the steps. And I think it's sort of like I can feel it in my heart space as I'm talking. And I feel like it's almost like a relief energy coming into us to be like, oh, it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. I think when we're really deep in the emotional energy or in that like stagnant energy, it's really hard to see clearly what we already have and like what the steps are. We just see the thing that we aren't at yet. We see, like, again, kind of what I was talking about before, how it's like we see where we want to be, but we're just not there. And it's frustrating. But it's like if you actually stop to think about it, it's like, okay, well, the only reason I'm not there is that I didn't do this thing. And it's like, I could do that. I've done it before. I will do it again. And it's sort of a comforting energy to come in at the beginning and this like crossover energy between Aquarius and um, Capricorn. And I think because we left off with the Magician, if we remember, at the end of Capricorn, that 18th to 19th, it's a very similar energy. It's that spark that says, I can already do it. I have all of the elements. I hold all of that within myself. I can create something. So this page coming in is like the piece that shows you how or like what the step is. You have the confidence, you get the vision sort of at the end of Capricorn season, but then this page comes in like, oh, here's the missing piece. Here's the grounded perspective of like how that actually can be a reality. It's not just a dream. This is like the matching piece to it. It almost feels like these fit together in a really positive way. And I think that's why it's coming in as this like bridge card into the season. But it feels very much like we're going to have a lot of clarity by the end of the week. It may be very noisy outside, which is why I said this feels like a personal energy. This doesn't feel like we're going to be getting this energy from the collective or from outside ourselves. Doesn't feel like this page is like something we're going to receive externally. It feels more like it's internal, just a continuation of that process because outside might be very, very loud and not helpful. So this does feel like something more like sitting and journaling or making a list or those things that like tend to ground us earth sign people. But for anybody, I think that's going to be sort of that part of the process is like sketching it out, drawing it out, talking it out, whatever it is that helps you get to that clarity of what it is you need to do.
I really like the combination of the magician with the page. I think one of the things that came up while you were talking about the page is the idea that maybe he doesn't know who he's working for. Like he may be interning someone. And so he's done a lot of work in this internship, but the direction he's going may actually shift in some way. So part of what's coming up, particularly this week, I called it signals and power shifts. We're going to just break it down day by day because it's crazy. And to kind of set the stage a little bit. So the 17th, this would be Saturday the 17th, Venus moves into Aquarius. So we've got Venus now. We've got Mercury and Mars kind of working their way through. We've got Pluto already there. So we're starting to get this buildup in Aquarian energy. And by the 18th, 19th, we've got this new moon in Capricorn. So this is, new ideas of what new systems and structures can be. And it's got Mercury right on top of Mars at the same time as this new moon. So it's thinking way outside the box. There isn't even a box. And I've talked a lot recently about how Saturn and Capricorn a little bit are the structure, what we would put something in to ship it. And we've had so much energy with Piscean waters, and Saturn is in Pisces, that it's like the box has been put in a puddle and we don't even, like, we can't make it work. Nothing is working. The structures don't stick. Nothing has form. So, okay, Mercury conjunct Mars, think way outside the box. Does the box even exist? So we move into the 19th. This is where we've now got Mercury trine Uranus. This is, again, thinking outside the box. Uranus is it's rolling, it's powerful, it's like electric. I always call it electric change. So decisive thinking, mental breakthroughs, and really stop overthinking and just do it already. Okay, but wait, there's more. We also have Venus conjunct Pluto the same day. So this is magnetic alliances, but this is where we start to see power shifts in relationships or in dynamics, because Pluto is always pulling up from the earth. It's always looking for what's underneath. And now this is attached to your heart. So there's a little bit of energy here about looking deeper. Who gets access to you? Where have you misaligned yourself in some way? And the same day, the sun enters Aquarius. Okay. So this is collective focus. We talked a lot in the intro about, collaboration wins over being the sole survivor, but not too much. You don't want to disappear into the group. So finding the right people right off the bat. Then the next day, the 20th, Mars is now going to be trine Uranus. So again, this is more bold action, innovation that actually works. This is, where are you going? And I also think things are going to start to get really loud. Mercury is now in Aquarius. So that uptick in mental chatter has kicked in. It's going to be there short amount of time. It only is there the 20th through the 6th. So it's getting ready to go retrograde next month. We'll talk about that. But this is fast ideas, networking in a hurry. I always say with this energy, it's a mental overstimulation. Like, you might just have a harder time sleeping, having too many ideas. One of the big things I've talked about this year is, if you have the ideas, write them down. You don't have to do all of them, but capture them. It's like having a butterfly net. Capture, use what works, let the rest go. Okay. On the 21st, the sun and Mercury cazimi, so they conjunct. And we always talk about when a planet passes over the sun, we call it a cazimi. It's like it's burning off the residual energies. It's a reset in some way. So to have Mercury reset with the sun in Aquarius, this is clarity, important conversations, letting the truth out in some way. And that ideas are going to kind of zing everywhere like live wires, right? Mercury, all of a sudden, it's like, oh my God, I plugged in, I recharged, and I got new energy to go. But it's also going to conjunct Pluto because, of course, the sun is right there with Pluto. So this means there is no such thing as small talk, that conversations are going to go deep really fast. We're going to want to get into, ask the better questions to get to a deeper layer. Okay. So Mercury's conjunct Pluto on the 22nd. So it's met the sun. Now it's meeting Pluto. Then on the 23rd, Mars enters into Aquarius. So this is that collective action when we're really willing to take a big move. And this is where I feel like words are going to get real serious, real fast, and where we start to have these power dynamics shift. Because with Mars in Aquarius and the sun on top of Pluto, so Pluto is cazimi to the sun, power is exposed, right? Where are we shining light on something that has been hidden? I think there's going to be tests for leaders. I always say, kind of play your cards close. Don't let everything out in the open, because you're just not going to know who's aligned with what. It feels I've talked to several people about the energy of this week, kind of giving them a heads up, particularly in Cards and Cosmos. I say this is the week that the wheels on the bus get real shaky and you start to notice that there's not enough bolts in all the wheels and things might be coming loose.
I feel like that shake-up energy is why the page energy is coming in so much because it's like we're receiving energy. It's like new information coming in, somebody bringing it, a different unlikely source might be bringing it in. But this actually is going to continue because for January 25th to the 31st, I have the Page of Wands. So we have another page energy. And so this is bringing in like the fire energy. So the wands, I think if we think about it, it could go any number of ways, but either way, it's bringing in some sort of information. Like it's very much, it's not necessarily the Page of Swords where it's like very much around the air, but Page of Wands tends to bring in like inspiration sort of energy. So creativity, just something if your brain, think of you if you're brainstorming all the different areas of, your work or your thoughts or your energy that you could be brainstorming. Like you wouldn't typically brainstorm things that you already know or that you can't necessarily control. But anything you can put your energy into is sort of what's showing up as like what this could be informing. So whether this is your creative work, whether this is your day-to-day work, wherever it is where you need to have a shift or you need to change or something needs to be moving in a different direction, but it's something that lights you up. There is a fire energy to this. This is like information that does turn into action. So while the Page of Pentacles is sort of lining it up, what actions do I want to take or like what is necessary to get to that final outcome I'm looking at? This energy is coming in with like maybe it's the reason you're so stuck is that you didn't have this other piece of information, or maybe there's a different way to do it. And that's where that inspiration is like exciting because it's like, okay, I already know where I'm going now. And now I have the inspiration. I know how to get there. And it's sort of like these two energies come in together in order to turn that solid, grounded perspective of like the map of how to get there, turning that into action of like, what's my vehicle? Like what is the thing that's going to get me out of bed to go do it? Maybe it's just the motivation. Maybe it's just somebody coming in and saying, it would be really great if we had XYZ. And then you're like, oh my God, I have a whole plan of how to get there. Do you want to do it with me? Like you never know what that page is going to bring or who's going to bring it, how it's going to come to you. I feel like that's the thing about the pages that's really kind of shakes up the energy because you go from like the end of the cycle when you're at the 10, when you're kind of at the peak of that energy and you're not quite at like, the knight who's like taking the action and moving forward. You're in this in between where you're just like, hey, it's me. I have this piece of information that might change how you're moving. And it's like the page has that quirky energy. And I think that fits in with Aquarius, having two page cards in Aquarius, which is an air sign, which is an information sign. It makes sense almost that it would have a couple of these different versions of the page and the messenger energy coming in. So I feel like it'll just be like keeping your eyes open for what sort of lights that fire in you to move forward and then following through with that action to see where it takes you.
I like this because the part of the wands to me is that taking inspiration, wanting to take action in terms of something. And we've got Neptune diving into Aries, which is literally going to change all the characters on the field. So we start on the 25th with the first quarter moon in Taurus. This is just a lovely check-in between the full moon and what's going to be the start of eclipse season very quickly. But to simplify, recommit to those things that are already working. You don't have to reinvent everything. You can trust that what you have been doing and where you feel pulled and what is calling you to align to it. And I think this goes back to, being your most authentic Aquarian self, because then you'll see how you align with others and we have more in common than we don't. Simplify, get back to what's working. And this is just kind of being aware. We all see what's happening. We all see it. How are you moving through your days? And that Taurus really wants to remind you that it's one foot in front of the other. Make sure you eat, make sure you rest, make sure you take care of yourself. And any one goal worth tending is yourself, just to keep going. Okay. Neptune enters Aries. This is January 26th through March 23rd of 2039. So these are those long transits that we had a tiny little preview of last year. Now we're getting it for real. This is action. This is where we move from those spiritual, lovely Piscean waters where anything is possible. We're all connected. There's maybe that feeling of just melting into one another. What is sexual orientation? What is a job? What, like we've had these question marks around everything. And that is finally, it's like it's going to burn away a little bit. And there's a feeling with this energy of like, we're going to hyper individuate. And this is why it's interesting that it's coming about with so many planets in Aquarius, because it's like, we're going to want to step out. We're going to want to be the hero. We're going to want to be the one to make the sacrifice and do the change, right? Aries is the first baby bird out of the nest. It's the first green sprout on the tree that says, I don't care if it's going to freeze. I have to do it. And so we look at this feeling of action heroes and all these things, but there's a reality that comes with it too, because it doesn't last in Aries. It burns out really fast. And so where we've had some of these underlying things that just kind of go on and on and on, that is going to start to burn away. So now we've got this courage and this willing to be confrontational and to put our beliefs, like, do the thing you said you believed in. Are you going to stand behind it? Are you really going to do it? And it echoes a lot of historic upheaval between 1862 and 1875. So you can go back and do your research and see, this connects to Civil War here, particularly in the United States. And I talked about this in the yearly episode where, at the beginning when Neptune was still in Pisces and the Civil War was just starting to get going, people were like, oh, it's just going to last a short amount of time. We're going to, like Andrea and I were talking we're going to declare that it starts on the 15th on a Thursday. We'll all go out. We'll have a picnic. We'll watch. Well, by that point, weapons had changed. Carnage was so much bigger than they anticipated because we had these machine guns and we had battles on the water and metal boats, and technology hadn't kept up with where our brain was actually thinking it was going to look like. And so the Civil War in the first few months was scarring to people. They had no idea that you couldn't go have a picnic and watch people get blown apart all day and go home and sleep. So there's something about that wake up call that is definitely part of this energy. What will it do long term? I mean, because we're talking through 2039, activism, moral courage, redefining leadership. Those are the big, big themes, I think. Okay, enough about that. On the 27th, now we have Mars and Pluto in Aquarius, and they're going to meet up. So this is part of that, like, 5 planets in 5 days situation. When our action and motivation unites with Pluto, it's like when your best friend is standing next to you and you know how much more powerful you feel. It's not that you see each other. It's that united, you become something different. This is that energy. So it's revolutionary pressure, power through collective action. Like united, Mars and Pluto are unstoppable, and they are very Scorpio energy. They are the 2 ruling planets of Scorpio. So that gives you an idea of like, Scorpio will sting you in your wound. It will find it and it will sting you there. If the lake isn't on fire when they start, it will be when they leave. They are not afraid to set fire to water and to your emotions. I just think around this time in particularly, channel any frustration, anger wisely. Go break a dish in the garage. Take a boxing class, go for a walk, whatever you need to do to move through it. I just feel like move your body somatically. The 29th, so this is 2 days later, Mercury is going to catch up to Venus in Aquarius. So they're going to go conjunct. The beautiful thing about this is where that heart-mind alignment comes in. And so it can be really productive in getting more of us on the same page, compassionate problem solving because we're speaking the same language from the head and the heart. And with Aquarius, there's more feeling around like, this is objectively good for everyone, not just for me. So again, feel like there will be a build up, and then it's like, okay, what do we do somehow with this information?
That makes so much sense for that energy with the pages. I feel like there's a lot coming into our awareness in these first 2 weeks, which can feel overwhelming, I think, for anybody who is just receiving all this information, maybe recognizing where their own values and things are shifting. Like there's a lot of movement happening both internally and externally with this. So I feel like it's one of those things where it's like Emily said, you got to grab on and like really either choose to move forward with what it is or go channel that energy into something productive if you're not ready to like move forward in the ways that you know you need to in a big way. Just channel it into something a little bit more manageable if you can. Which actually brings us into this next week, which is February 1st to the 7th. It's the strength card. We have a major arcana, number 8. And I think it's got a little bit of a few things for me this time around, like when I'm feeling this energy. The main energy of it is that you can lead without being aggressive. You can lead with your heart. You can lead with that authenticity of who you are. And I think when I feel into the 8 energy with that Leo, it also has the energy of the 8th house, like we were talking about, the like deeper things. When you're leading with strength, sometimes it's because you're aware of these other energies that other people aren't seeing. There's more that you can see that other people maybe aren't looking in the same direction that you are. And that's why you're able to be the leader, because you have this experience. You've gone down and done the digging yourself. And now you're coming back with that information, which has a bit of a page energy in itself. But it also is like a Leo energy. There is that, spotlight energy. If the spotlight's on you when you're in that strength energy, that like taming the lion, um, moving past whatever it is that's prevented you from speaking up before. And I think this can happen in a number of different settings. But if we're talking about the bigger collective energy of activism, this makes a lot of sense why this would come up after we've had this influx of information coming in. It's like sometimes once you hear something, you can't unhear it. And you feel that responsibility like, okay, now I can't, with good conscience, just push that away again. I've seen what's underneath, and now I have to speak about it or present it in whatever way makes sense for you. Some people that's turning it into art. Some people that's creating that sense of community that you're going to need if things go south, whatever that is, wherever you can be the best leader. I think sometimes we try and put ourselves like we may have a knowledge of like, I could see this area of the world changing or like this aspect of how we do things. But if you don't know how that works or you don't know, the steps or what's involved, then you might not be as successful as a leader in that space. You could draw attention to it, but maybe you'd actually be a great leader in one of the things that come naturally to you that would just support people in a different way. So I think this is like that energy of where can I lead from the heart, where it feels natural, where I feel like I have the authority, and people, when they're looking at me, they don't look at me and see the fear. They see the trust, right? They see that I am very grounded and calm because I do know this particular thing so well that I can lead without it being taxing on my energy. It's something that I can have sustained energy in. I think we can still point our energy towards things that we know need to change and put our energy into learning more about those things. But that can be its own side quest where you're just keeping your awareness until you build up that knowledge because everything takes time. But in the meantime, where can you put your energy where you are able to lead, where you do have the expertise? And even if it seems like, I think something that's coming forward a lot is like, we often think you have to be out there being an activist. And then it stops us because it's like, not everyone is a physical out in the world activist. I think there's a lot of people that are going to have that awakened within them where it is going to be the time, especially with the Aries energy coming in. I think there are people that are going to be like, wow, I can do this. I can show up. I am brave. I feel better being on the ground out there with people. Like that makes me feel more secure knowing I'm physically out there doing something. But that's not everyone. And not everyone has the physical capability of doing that either. But I think the world needs places for these other people who want to do something productive to go. And so if your expertise is in art or music or just gathering, doing a book club and learning together about something that you all want to learn more about, whatever it is that is natural to you, it's not frivolous. It's not external. It's not extra. It's not on the outside. That is the central thing. We need to get back into these things. Anything that can unite people is important. Doesn't matter what it is or how far away it may seem in the scale of like activists to, being alone in a comfortable space. Whatever brings you a little bit out of that comfortable space is important. It's a step outward towards the collective. So I think that's sort of what this strength card is coming in with. It's like there's also abundance there. So for the people who are like, I still need to sustain myself, I still need to be covering my bills, I still need to have a roof over my head in order to feel safe, then yes, that can also be something that people are paying for. It doesn't mean you have to do all of this for free. You can do things that bring you what you need because people also have their own resources. And I think that's where that eighth house energy comes in. The phrase that always sticks in my head for the eighth house is other people's money. And I think there's a lot around that where we can redirect money away from Amazon and the billionaires to these smaller things. Like maybe instead of making a big Amazon order of just things you think are fun, maybe you join a book club or a bowling league. Maybe you put some of those funds into something that's more nourishing to your soul as opposed to just more things that you have around your house. So I think if we look at these little shifts that are doable, that maybe on their own seem really small, but if we're all doing that to support each other as opposed to putting our money into these big companies, it doesn't seem so frivolous anymore. Now you can know the person that you're giving those funds to, and you know that that person has a mission that they're working on and needs to support themselves in the meantime. So just keeping that in mind, that other people's money energy seems to be coming forward a lot with this week.
So many great things that tie into this week. Hands down. Great card. The big one that really hit me right over the head when you started is February 1st is the full moon in Leo. And we're talking about this Leo strength energy card. So this is leadership courage and that feeling like you were talking about joy versus obligation is kind of how I describe the energy because yes, we can all do and resist and do the things in our own way. And this is where that Venn diagram comes back of like what's overlapping and how we become more powerful individually. And we're going to see that this actually starts to make a difference because that Leo full moon is like stepping into it fully, claiming it with all of that power and remembering that there's more than just surviving. One of the other things that came up when you were talking is the idea that every time I feel like we get somewhere in terms of more truth being released, there's another big distraction, right? It's like, oh no, look over here, blah, blah. It's the boy who cries wolf. And I think at some point, it's remembering that it's more than survival. Like Neptune in Pisces is like, oh, there's a trauma over there. Oh, there's a trauma over there. And everything is a trauma. There's no more trauma with a capital T. It's everything is a trauma with a little t. And I think we're tired of that. We're like, no, I'm not falling for it anymore. Contact me when something's real, when I really need to worry about it. Otherwise, I'm over here making my life happy. The more you can do that and remember that there's more to life than just survival, that's everything you need to know about this particular week. And I think with this Leo full moon, we are moving the north and south nodes into Leo and Aquarius later this year. This is powerful. Whatever you really work on focusing now, and it's going to take strength, without a doubt. This is overriding some mental chatter that's happening. But Jupiter is going to be moving into Leo later too. You're going to have so much support. There's so much enthusiasm coming through with this energy. So really enjoy the energy that comes with that new moon or the full moon in Leo, excuse me, on the 1st. Now, what I'm particularly excited about February 2nd, Uranus is going to station direct in Taurus. So this is the last of its retrograde energy in Taurus for our lifetimes, unless you're 10 or 12. Apologies. The rest of us, we get to be done. So this is where we're going to finally feel some forward motion in terms of financial shakeups and home. Can we collectively take a breath? What's going to happen? Are we redefining what stability looks like? And like you said, not shopping on big corporate sites. Are we recognizing that we have enough individually we can trade with each other? Like, what is all of that security and long-term security actually look and feel like? Because it has a lot less to do with how many things am I going to collect and die with, and a lot more with what do I have right now that makes me feel happy and safe and secure? That's what's giving us strength. So pay attention to that. We've got just a few months left of Uranus. It's going to do plenty of nonsense before it's gone. But when it stations direct, it's like holding a pen on a piece of paper a little too long, right? It kind of bleeds out. So there may be a little chaos, some delays, some kind of erratic moments, particularly during this week-ish energy building up to and leaving. So just be aware of that. We also have Mercury square Uranus. This comes on the 5th. Again, Uranus is barely moving, if at all. And to have Mercury square it, Mercury is the one moving quickly. It'll be there in kind of a flash, but this is like something coming quick. This is mental lightning or a disruptive news or disruptive idea. Your nervous system kind of feeling on fire or on edge. So be aware of that. And on the 6th, Mercury enters Pisces already. So it flew through Aquarius, right? We were only talking about that a couple weeks ago. And now that it's in Pisces, this is where we start to get intuitive. We start to get back into our emotions. We start looking at like, well, what does this really mean? What's the underlying layer? Do I want to disassociate from it all? So watch your boundaries, watch your empathy, just pay attention and don't turn off in terms of trying to avoid it and disassociate, but be really aware of where you're spending your energetic spoons every day. So stay flexible. It's going to be noisy, but not everything needs your awareness this week.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with having that like push of feeling like you have to be doing something with the leadership. It's like knowing where to pull back and where to move forward is really hard sometimes with that energy. For February 8th to the 14th, we actually have another major arcana. We have two in a row, and this one is the Fool, which is very interesting because it almost feels like this month is very clear with its intentions and very tied to Aquarius energy because we have this like Page of Pentacles that comes in and tells us, okay, we've got our plan. Then we've got the inspiration and the energy to move forward with the plan. We've got our leadership. We're like saying, okay, I know this has to happen. I know I have to organize it. So let's go, connect with people, put it out there. And now this Fool energy is like, I'm doing the thing. It's bold action and it's trust. Sometimes you're like, I don't know who's going to follow me. I don't know who is going to be on the same wavelength, but I have to put it out there. I have to share it. I have to talk about it. And I'm ready. I'm moving forward. I'm going to do it. And I think because what I really like, and I talk about this in a lot of different ways, but I really like the zero energy being acknowledged. There's something about this, like you've taken the leap. You haven't landed. You haven't done anything yet. You've literally just taken the leap and you're kind of in that floating space of, we'll see where it lands. Like that zero is like when something's loading, and it's going in a circle. And it's like, something's going to pop up on the screen. And like, yes, maybe it's where we intend to go. Maybe it's an error. I don't know. But I have to push the button, right? And then that's the point we're at, where it's like, you're sending a risky message where you're like, I don't know how this person's going to receive it. And you like kind of close your eyes when you press the send button, even though it's electronic and you're not in front of the person. It's kind of that energy, but you're doing it with a little bit more confidence because you've had that strength energy from the week before where you've really built yourself up to be like, I am capable of this. I do have everything I need. I have it inside me. And if I don't, you just have that feeling, which I think translates into this week of the Fool. The reason you're in the lead is because you get so sure in that week of the leadership with the strength card that you're like, I have to, it's now or never. You get that urgency energy of like, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know if I don't do it, I'm going to look back and say, I know I should have done it. Or someone else is going to say, someone should have done this. And I'm going to say, I know that should have been me. And I feel like for me, the risk of not doing something is a lot more scary than seeing what happens. I think the risk energy, maybe it is, again, like we've talked about in previous episodes, maybe it's all the cardinal energy that I have where I just really do like that energy. And I think with all the Aries energy coming in, it's like the original cardinal energy. And I think we all kind of pick up on that a little bit. So that fire energy, as much as it was with the Page of Wands, it goes into the strength card as well. There's that Leo energy of fire. And then even though the Fool is sort of it feels like one of the only true neutrals, because you kind of need a little bit of all energies, but you also kind of need to pretend none of it exists in order to take that leap. So that zero is like it's empty a little bit, because if you have too much earth energy, you might not do it. If you're too much in your head, you might not do it. If you have too much fire, you might just burn out and not know what you're doing. And if you have too much water, you might be too emotional to even get outside of yourself. So it's almost like you have to clear all of the elements at this point and just do it. And it's a weird energy to be in, but everybody knows the first day of anything has that energy. You don't know how you're going to feel about it. You don't know what's going to ground you in that energy. And I think we have to do that, because if we tell ourselves ahead of time, when I do this, I'm going to feel XYZ, then we don't see what could have been otherwise. We don't know what could have happened if we just waited to see where it landed. And I think that's the whole thing. Waiting to see where you land is part of the Fool. And if you keep in mind, too, the next card is the Magician. So it's not bad. Either way, you're going to figure it out. That's the whole point of the Magician is, okay, have all the elements. So that's why I feel like it's been coming up so clearly to me the last while that the Fool has no elements attached, because then the Magician has all of the elements that it's in control of. So it's like you kind of need to clear the slate and then jump in and say, okay, I have all the elements. Now what am I going to do with it? But you have to take the step first. You have to make the declaration to yourself and outward first, and then sort of see. Because I think part of what we don't know is when we make this declaration and we do it, who's going to come in and join you, who brings their own elements to the mix. And I think that's a big piece of this Aquarius connection to this energy, is by taking a leap, you're also meeting with all the other people out in that space that are ready to take action or ready to bring their skills to something. And this can be something like exciting and just fun, a project that you've just been wanting to do. It doesn't have to be you're creating a whole group of people doing something, a whole movement. You don't have to put that pressure on yourself. But whatever it is that you've been sort of sitting on, that you're like, this kind of is a bit of a risk for me, this is the energy to do it in. There's a lot of energetic support there. And I think too, like going from the strength to this, you have the confidence built up. So like it's good to move with that momentum when the energy's there, rather than trying to force it later when you're going to be stuck in one of the other elements and you won't be able to have a true Fool energy. I think it's best to do it when you're able to just throw caution to the wind and just jump in. And I think that's sort of where we're sitting right now.
What came up while you were talking, and I think this is one of the things that people have the hardest time grasping in terms of if they have a lot of fire in their chart or they don't, or they have access to that Aries energy or they're afraid of it. When Aries decides to take the jump, it's doing so knowing, very much like the Magician, that it has the tools, that whatever comes up, I'm smart enough, I've have life experience, I'll figure it out. And the worry, I think, comes from how quickly will I be able to solve the problem? Do I trust that I will be too emotional to, walk out of the house that day? Will I be too overwhelmed that I'll freeze? Right? It's that fight, flight, freeze. And I really want to remind everyone that we all have access to Aries in it. It is our first house. It is that idea of self-identity that when push comes to shove, you know what you will stand up for. You know how you will act. There's part of you that has that primal drive to just do the thing. It's like when you start to fall, your hands come out to try and catch you. There's things that happen that you don't even have to think about because you will take care of yourself. So a lot of the energy this week fits that Fool so much. There's a feeling of surrender to the shock that things are moving. It's like you can't hold it back now. This is the part of the year where there's no going back. Nothing that looked the way it used to is accessible. We're closing that. We have to focus instead on what we're going to build in the future, because all of the systems are going to be coming apart at the seams. And this is the more collective energy of the year, where it gets emotional and we kind of deal with like our nervous system coming back down from the wildness of it comes in the fall. So just give yourself the understanding right now that you have capacity. We're doing a lot of this together and it's going to be okay. So right away on the 8th, we have Venus now square Uranus. So Venus is in Aquarius, very collective, we're getting prepared to break the systems down. We're okay with that. But when it hits Uranus, and Uranus again has just gone direct, so it's barely moving at a half of a snail's pace. This is again sudden shifts in values. Venus is what you value, love, and desire, and Uranus always makes it unexpected. So expect kind of a jolt, an unexpected connection to someone that maybe you didn't think would happen. There can be excitement around that. At the same time, anyone who's changing their mind could have, a lot of insecurity. Having to remain curious about the fear that is coming up for you is what I would encourage. Can you go on this journey without certainty of where we're headed? That's the Fool, right? Just let go of the steering wheel. We have a last quarter moon in Scorpio on the 9th. This is to me a very like what's fact, what's fiction. Scorpio always loves to go deeper. No half commitments, no small talk. Like just give it to me straight so I can deal with it. On the 10th, Venus enters Pisces. So we're out of some of that last degree of Aquarius energy. And here again, we're going to start to open up to that compassion and get creative in our dreaming and our problem solving. What I love about this is that it doesn't have Neptune here anymore to add to the steam and the fog in the room. It's much more about how do I feel, and for lack of a better word, spiritually connected to everything that's greater than me. How do I feel connected to others? Having rose tinted glasses in a way, but making sure you don't lose your own boundaries. Don't be gullible. Don't fall for the things that maybe seem too good to be true. So keep that inner backbone, have access to it, but soften the edges. Not everything is black and white and yes or no and in or out. There's lots of different variations. On the 12th, we have Mercury conjunct the North Node. What I love about this, because they are both in Pisces, this is like fated conversations, intuitive downloads. This is a really great day to meditate, to get in touch with the highest possible version or direction that you want for yourself. Don't over rationalize it. Mercury will want to break it down into all the possible little pieces. And sometimes it's just an inspiration and you can let it come, let it pass, take what you need to keep. The next big part of this week, and this is where I feel like that Fool energy really takes off, Saturn moves into Aries. This is a week ahead of the two planets meeting because Neptune's also at a snail's pace. But from February 13th through April 12th of 2028, friends, we're into the future. This is finding discipline, right? Saturn is discipline and leadership in action. And hopefully, even though it's riding so close to Neptune for the rest of the year, that won't be completely blurred. But there will be moments where it's been frustrated. It's been super frustrated in Pisces. And again, in Aries, it's not super happy because it wants to master something before it moves on. And Aries and the Fool is like, no, you open the parachute on the way down. Like you'll figure. So Saturn is going to want to hold you back from trusting in your courage and trusting in the spark. And I encourage you not to burn out. This is going to be a moment of, you're kind of forcing the momentum and that might take extra energy. So anyone with fire, I'm looking at all of my Aries out there. This is going to be a major transit. Like, don't overdo it. You're going to feel like you have extra booster rockets, but you don't have the fuel for them. So use them in small spurts. And what's interesting, on February 14th, we have the moon opposite Jupiter. So this can feel emotionally excessive. I just kind of say stay in. Jupiter is in Cancer. It wants to stay in. Venus is over here in Pisces, and it's kind of, watery, and everything there's just a lot. There's a lot around this balance, between the nostalgia of what I think I want to feel good. And sometimes meatloaf and mashed potatoes is what you want. Maybe that is what makes you feel happy and safe and loved. And sometimes it's going out and trying Thai food and not knowing if it's going to be good. You got to find what works for you. Um, Let go of the control. Control is an illusion all of this month.
I love that for like the Fool. Like, even as something as simple as like, what are you going to order on Valentine's Day turns into like a leap of faith. And I think, you know what, something that's coming forward with that is just a simple thing where it's like, if you are the person that usually is in control, like letting the other person make the choice can feel like an adventure, and lean in. Just let the other person pick what to eat for dinner. Like, sometimes we try to control the small things too much, but this week is about making a big leap. So you are making a big leap. So let other people do the small things that you would normally try and control. And that's balance, right? Like, if you usually choose what everybody eats for every meal, if other people just choose for this week while you're making a big change, you may not realize how much that supports you and surprises you. So even in the small things, let yourself just let go a little bit. See what happens. Surrender. You know, you never know. Do just a quick scroll, and the first thing you click on in Uber Eats, that's what you're eating. I don't know. That just came in my head. I don't know why. But for February 15th to the 17th, this like crossover a little bit as we're getting close to Pisces, I pulled the Three of Pentacles, which 100% to me makes sense for that energy of like, after you've made this big, bold leap, you have to connect with people. You have to find the people that are going to collaborate with you, that are going to take some of the weight away from you. So like we were just saying, with like when you're trying to control everything, finding the people that have a similar vision, who want to support you and help that move forward, is really magical this time of the cycle, because you've just had all of this realization of like what it is that means something to you, where your strengths are, what you are able to do with ease, and what you're able to lead other people through. You've just taken a leap to say, okay, I'm doing it. You put it out there, you've taken the leap, and then this catches you. This energy of the community catches you and helps you hold it and helps you move it forward. And I think maybe for some people, you'll just be finding those people and maybe the beginning stages of that collaboration. But that three energy of, you know, that alliances and connections, I think we often just think of two as like partnership. But I think the three is like, it takes sometimes you, another person, and spirit. Like, spirit might be part of that too, that co-creation, right? Like, that also might be part of the energy, is like those cosmic connections of like how you end up finding that person that is connected to your vision in an unexpected way. And we're still technically in Aquarius energy. So sometimes it's a very weird way that you might meet someone who has something in common with you. It might be when you're out at the store somewhere and you just happen to overhear a conversation, or you never know, you might reach for the same book. It might be some weird cosmic moment coming out of Valentine's Day. Perhaps it's just a romantic moment where you happen to connect with someone when you're out getting that weird Thai food that you weren't expecting to get. But there's something about that release of like letting go of control and then finding this community, settling in with these people that are going to collaborate and help you with the next steps. And something I'm feeling with this, like Three of Pentacles specifically, is this could be in the realm of starting a business, or something that really is going to be sustainable for you moving forward. Because if we're looking at the cycle of Pentacles, you know, it's the ace to the 10 and then back to the page. So we just went back to the page. And so now we're starting a new cycle. And now this is the point in the cycle where you meet up with all the people, whether it's the people that are going to sign up to take your class, whether it's someone you're working with collectively to create something in a community way, whatever it is that is like the people that are needed to move your vision forward. And this is going to be different for every cycle. So this is where that like element of letting go of control is still going to be in the air, because maybe in the past you did XYZ. Maybe you like did a post on Instagram and then like shared it in your stories and people happened to respond to that. But now if you're going to an in-person thing, it may not translate the same. You might have to like put up flyers, talk to people in the spaces where you think you have something in common. And it may be you doing a little bit of the like work to like put yourself in just different spaces. And that's where, like, when you get the sudden urge to go to a new bookstore, that's where it's like, okay, I have to follow that because that might be where my people are. And then if not, maybe you just find an interesting book, like there's always something that you're going to gain from following that intuition and moving forward with those nudges. And I think we're going to start to feel that magic. And going into Pisces season, I'm not surprised that these like signs and synchronicities and things are sort of picking up because we're connecting back into that all connected energy in Pisces, that energy that truly is at the end of the cycle where we realize, oh my gosh, we are all connected. We have this realization. And then that's what fuels us to go back into Aries to be like, oh, now that I've met up with the collective, I know where I fit and I'm going to take this and run with it. So we kind of have all of that happening in this 1 month, even though we're like still moving. Those signs are yet to come, the Pisces and the Aries, but we're getting that sneak preview of what I can do and the people I need to connect with so that when we get into Pisces season, when we get into Aries season and we start this new astrological year, I already have all of the support that I need to really take that and run with it. This is sort of like the test run in a way for all of these things. That's why I said you may just be finding the people now. It might not be completely building the thing all the way through, but it's just those little sparks of connection and realization that there are other people and that it is a real thing and that it's tangible and that you can do it. That's all you need right now. The other things will come. The momentum and everything is coming, but this month is really about that like firm grasp on like what it is you are going to be doing personally that's going to connect in with that collective energy.
Absolutely. This week to me is collective courage, without a doubt. And what's crazy, I'm going to get tired of saying it's crazy. Everything about this year is crazy. On the 15th, we've got the Sun square Uranus. So again, we have this Aquarius Taurus friction where the values don't quite match. Aquarius is like, why does anyone need anything? And Taurus is like, it's only what gets me through the day. I have this soft blanket when I get home. So recognizing social discomfort versus like whose values are aligned with what, and starting to kind of, it feels like things are sifting to the surface. I always think of the truck that drove down the bumpy road. It had a huge thing of potatoes in the back and it was automatically sorted because all the little ones fell to the bottom and the big ones were at the top. It has that energy to me, that Aquarius Taurus friction. So being aware of who's draining you. Is it ridiculous to take all that extra time down the smooth road and sort your potatoes by hand, or have a friend go with you on the bumpy road that supports your growth and now you're 5 steps ahead? Being really aware of your boundaries, because that's part of Pisces season. It's that feeling of we're all one. Your wounds are my wounds. Everything is collective. And yes, we have that. And that is a huge part of community and moving forward. And where does it turn toxic? Where has it turned toxic in some way? Here's the kicker. The new moon in Aquarius on the 17th is the annular solar eclipse. So not only annual, but annular, which means it's how much of the sun is covered. This solar eclipse is really only visible to Antarctica, like a little bit of South Africa, and a little bit of extreme southern Australia. So it's not visible to a lot of us, but it's also kind of like, what's under the surface? What's down there that we haven't been looking at? It's a very future focused kind of reset. And this is also Lunar New Year's Eve. So this is when we start to celebrate the year of the fire horse. So we're bringing in the year of the fire horse with a solar eclipse that's really not visible to everyone, but it is that idea of freedom and courage and acceleration. And how can we move with this untamed spirit? It's like, you can't hold me back anymore. I'm going to start running. And this is where you can start running on your own. And before you know it, you look around and you're like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. There's a herd mentality. There's we're all collectively running in the same direction. And that feeling of a stampede is really hard to stop. You're going to recognize that there's more of us in this together than not. Venus is also going to be conjunct the North Node at this whole moment. So this is a softening of some of those, well, particularly, in Pisces, they're together. A softening of the vision, a of old patterning of things where we've, looked for karma and maybe not seen it, I feel like it might actually happen. I talked a little bit about this being like a karmic reset in some way. And then, as if this day isn't powerful enough, we have Mercury trine Jupiter. So Mercury already sailed all the way through Aquarius in Pisces. It's getting ready to retrograde. So it is starting to slow down. We're in a little bit of the shadow period here. Now, a trine is usually an alliance in some way. So it's willing to work with Jupiter in Cancer. And Jupiter wants, it expands things. And in Cancer, it might be nostalgia. It might be the way we were, the things that keep us safe and comfy, which we love, we need. And where have we relied on that too much? Jupiter may, make it feel like that vulnerability feels really safe. But when we can unite in some way with this energy, it's like, I didn't realize you also had that, or I didn't realize you also felt that way. So there's a real opportunity here to see and be seen and be understood in a new way, because Mercury is helping you to communicate these ideas in a way that feels emotionally intelligent. Venus is saying we're doing it for the betterment of the collective. We're moving forward. This is us moving into the future. And then that fire horse energy taking off. It's like, whew. So in some ways, I feel like this first eclipse of the year, and of course, we're going to have the opposite, the lunar eclipse coming up in just 2 weeks after this in Pisces season, is about kind of recognizing who's keeping pace with you, who's around you. And we don't have to all have the same shared values as long as we have a mutual respect. Every horse that's out there running doesn't have the same childhood. It doesn't have the same dietary needs. It doesn't have, the hooves are different. Like, all of these things are different, and they're all still part of the herd. They're all still running together. Momentum and energy is going to be picking up at this point, whether you are getting on board or not. Any of you who are afraid of fire energy or a fast movement, it's coming. But check on who can walk this with you. We always talk about in herds, they will put the strongest animals sometimes in the middle, because it helps bring the elderly or the older forward, or even at the back of the pack sometimes is where, you find the alpha males and dogs. And very much there's a feeling of we're in this together by this point. And this, I think, helps ease some of the tension of what's coming. But we move into a very fast and active Pisces season with a Mercury retrograde, a lunar eclipse, and then the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. So this is, I feel like I'm leaving people hanging a little bit, which I hate to do, but it's an interesting Aquarius season.
Yeah, I think there's this, like you said, it's like the stampede is at the edge of a cliff at the end of the month. It's like we've all run and then we're like, oh shit, there's a cliff. But I feel like that Three of Pentacles being the energy to bring us out of it kind of aligns with all of that, like Aquarius energy, where it's like, this is where you find your people and this is where you find that support. Like what Emily was saying, that you find the people that can walk the path with you. You find who's with you already that you didn't realize. And I think even when I was talking earlier about like how I've found community here, at first I was like, oh, there's no one. It's a desert here. It's just me. And then slowly I started to realize, oh, okay, there's 10 of us now. Like it multiplies in a slow, sort of steady way, but it's just more opening your awareness and looking in different places and then being open. So I think, yeah, it can be overwhelming when you just see all of the energy building and you feel like you can't turn around, you're going to be trampled. But at the same time, maybe, that is where the people who are running past you, you see the people that are like, you're like, okay, I want to get on that horse. That's the one that aligns with me. That's what I've been waiting for. So I feel like if anything, it can bring what you're looking for to you faster. And so if you're not feeling the momentum yet and you're not quite sure what your thing is to do, you'll probably find it if your awareness is open. You'll see it running by. You'll hear it in passing. In passing feels like a phrase where it's like anything that you find out might be really quick. It might be in passing and you might question it. Like, was that really for me? Was that message for me? And it's like, yes, if it caught your attention, it is for you. So I think there's like Emily said, everyone is in a different experience. But I think that's the main message, is that whatever part of that cycle you're in, however close or far you feel from like your piece in, this is the point where you'll find it. This month, this season, this week. This will be when you find your final thing that you need in order to get that movement going.
I was even feeling the anxiety as I was writing the astrology for all of this. And so before we jumped on today, I'm the one that pulled an oracle card for a change. And the card I pulled is good is universal. And I just love this because the message on the back is the realization that good is universal and that as much good as any individual is able to incorporate into their life is theirs to use. So to me, that's the underlying message of the whole chunk of Aquarius season. We know in times of crisis, Mr. Rogers, he's our favorite down here in the States. You know, the cardigan, everybody loves Mr. Rogers. Always said, when there's a disaster, look for the helpers. The helpers are the first ones to show up. We are eternally good. Our core is good. We want the best. And I think hopefully this will be the moment that we start to recognize that in each other again. And all of this in or out, black or white, other versus self, all of that is going to start to fade to some extent, or at least this will be the seeds of when that's planted. And we'll start to recognize, okay, wait, we have far more power together than we do individually. And we actually have way more in common. Like, let's get back to when we all would talk about Seinfeld around the water cooler on Monday morning and regifting. Like, we have that in us, and we've just gotten off track. And the other thing I wanted to bring up quick is, we talk a lot about, do the planets cause what's happening? And I just want to share with you that that is not my belief. It's not because the planet is there that it's causing us to have these experiences. It's literally reflecting. Every time we've gone through these issues as humans, or not, because we've got some undocumented things happening as well, we're noticing the patterns that when we've done this collectively, the planet has reflected that behavior back to us. They are reflective bodies. They're not illuminating like the sun. So do the planets cause it? No, but they're telling us based on past experiences, this is what's coming.
I feel like that gives us the power back, because I think sometimes we can feel a little powerless if we're like, well, if it's going to happen anyways, why even bother? But I think it's more so saying, like, if there was ever a time for you to do this thing, now would probably historically be a good time to do that, you know? And so that's when we were talking about, when you have that urgency and that knowing of like, it's now or never, it's not really like a threatening energy. It's more so an encouraging energy to say, you're already thinking of it. You have everything you need. Just do it. See what happens, right? It's more of a, like Emily says, more of a reflective thing. It's more saying to you, hey, if you're already thinking of doing this, chances are now is a good time. Or like, if you're worried about why you're feeling this way, it's not just you. This is typically how people feel when these energies are at play. So I think it does sort of help you connect back into that universal good, into that like collective energy again, rather than being like like, of course, we're going to get a little concerned if we see there's like some big change happening. But at the same time, it just gives us that reassurance that, okay, at least I know probably everyone else is feeling similarly. And if I connect with them, we can maybe help each other with some support during that time. So yeah, I think Emily's right. I think especially during Aquarius energy, that's the best time to have that awareness that we are all connected to that energy. That is that network sort of feeling of, okay, at least it's widespread. Like everyone's sort of in this with me, even if we're not physically together. At least I know I'm not alone in that experience of, the terror mixed with the leadership and the excitement about what I can do to make a change.
So speaking of, let's talk about how we can support the people. Um, Personally, I've got my books are wide open for February, March, and even I opened some dates into April. So here, if you need readings, guidance, I still have the 2026 Me reading, which is me taking a look at your current astrological chart and what's coming up for you. So this is hyper individual, lets you know where some of these things might be impacting you directly, not only this year, but through some of these longer transits with Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. Of course, Akashic readings are still going on over in Spirit Social. If you haven't downloaded the app, they did just do a minor price increase, but anytime you join, you are locked in at that rate. So I highly recommend getting in. It continues to get even more amazing. But there are so many activities happening every month. And on February 11th, I'll be doing a free to any subscribers Akashic group reading and demonstration. So we're going to be talking about the fear of being seen. And I'll be entering the records, not only collectively, but for some individuals that are there. And then continuing on with astrology support and probably feeling called to offer some astrology classes coming up in the spring. So if you're interested, please DM me. I'll have more details coming out about that soon. How about you? What's going on?
Those all sound really exciting, especially getting into the Akashic records. I feel like there's something about like Aquarius season and Akashic records that just feels like a match. It just feels like that energy. So interesting. But yeah, I would definitely recommend joining that. And then Cards and Cosmos as well.
You're so
Is that
sweet.
going
Thank you. I
happening?
always forget. Yes. The first Saturday of every month, we meet and pull cards. And one of the things we did in January was the Wheel of the Year. So we're going to be talking each month about not only the cards we pulled for the Wheel of the Year, but then also continuing with some support cards this year because this is such an emotionally charged year. Like, what are we doing each month to support ourselves through some of those energies? So I'll be doing more astrology, some individual pieces for everyone who's involved. I always look at your charts ahead of time and yeah, come join us. We have so much fun.
We definitely do. It is a good energy and a good group. I am keeping it a little more simple. I've got some projects I'm working on, but I will have some readings available for anybody who would like that individual support. I have mini readings that are just like you don't even have to show up. I just send you an email with a PDF. I have recorded readings where I'll do an audio reading for you, or we can meet on Zoom. I have different options. I know everyone has different capacity and different time levels that they have available, so I have a few options. And then I am still able to do your 26 forecasts if you're interested in it, because I can include January of next year if we're going into February. I'll still do a 12-month forecast regardless of when it's booked. I don't have it on my website at the moment. I may add it by the time this airs, but if you're interested or you missed out, feel free to just email me or message me on Instagram. That's usually an easier way to connect. But yeah, I'll have those available as well. But most of my focus will be on individual readings for the reason that I feel like a lot of people really do need that one-on-one support now. And then I am thinking, which I'm going to gauge based on interest. So I'll probably be putting out some polls here and there, maybe in my newsletter for February. But I do want to sort of think about doing an online printmaking class. I want to try having one that's like available that people can purchase later. But I think the first one I kind of want to do live to see how people follow along with the instructions. So it'll likely be that they're pre-recorded lessons, but then when we meet is to like troubleshoot, or if you just like having that body doubling of other people doing the same thing as you at the same time. But I think what I'll do is have the lessons ready and then have certain times that we meet to go through each step so that you can practice or do some troubleshooting. So that's something I'm thinking about that I think a lot of people have been nudging me. And I had someone ask me again this week. So I am going to have to start planning out the process of that. I'm going to be teaching locally here. I'm going to be teaching lino cut and dry point through probably February, March, maybe a little bit into April. And then during that same time frame is when I think I want to try and plan these courses so that I'm actively in it already myself. And then it'll help me figure out by teaching people in person what it is I need to include in the online lessons that might be things if you're doing it on your own that you need some pointers on. So yeah, it's kind of bringing my art stuff out into the internet space since it's very much a hands-on thing, but finding a way to make it accessible to everybody instead of the people that keep messaging me being like, I know you're doing this in person, but I'm very far away and I want to learn. So it's kind of a way to connect everyone into what I'm doing in my day to day.
Oh, perfect with your Venus and Aquarius and all of the transits coming. I think that will be perfect timing. And I too am one of those people who lives far away and is dying to know all the things. If you haven't been over to Andrea's Instagram, I just have to say, check out, there was a piece she ended up giving her brother and sister-in-law for Christmas that is absolutely one of the sweetest animal prints I have ever seen. And it's two pieces framed together. It's just absolutely delightful. So you're on my list to hire for, I want a commission for something on my little pups. And I also am a purchaser of your yearly report. And if any of you are looking for something like this, because I did not offer this type of a reading this year, Andrea's are always so fantastic. It's so many pages of amazing information. She shares the cards, um, really helped me kind of finally feel like I had a grasp on the year. So I just can't recommend it enough. If that's something you're even considering looking for, don't hesitate to bug her, send her messages, all the things, because it's totally, totally worth it.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I think now having done a couple of personal prints even, I'm usually in my own little zone, just doing whatever, but I think that connection to the people and like the real, creatures that I'm doing the pictures of or whatever it is, the real landscapes, whatever it is that people have really wanted to see in their homes. I think me knowing that it's going to be in someone's home, it like gives it a different energy when I'm working on it. So I am also open for commissions. I think I'll be looking into probably March, April now, because I have another one that I'm working on at the moment. But I also really appreciate the feedback on those forecasts because I get into like a zone where I'm just sort of like tuning in for each month with the card and I'm sort of staring for a while for each one. And then when it's all completed, it's like my artwork too, where it's like once it's done, I just send it out and I like just release it. Like, okay, I did it. I'm not going to question it. It's out there. So I appreciate that, but I love doing them. I like being in that energy because it's being in one person's energy for an extended period of time. And I feel like that's why I like my prints as well, because there's so many there's so many parts of the process. And you kind of are in that for a good amount of time. It's like you get to know it and then you're releasing it into the world. It's like an interesting similarity in the way that I feel with both processes. But I think we both have like a lot, as much as we were saying to each other, like, I'm not really doing that much. I feel like we both have so much that we actually are offering. It's typical earth sign things where we're like, I'm doing nothing. And meanwhile, it's like 17 things simultaneously. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of teaching energy for both of us this year. I think it's going to be evolving in a really interesting way as we move through. But I think for Aquarius, it feels like we really are out in the collective more than we were the last few years. I think Emily and I are both on a similar journey where we're kind of leaning into the creativity, but also still keeping that foot in the spiritual world to stay connected to all of you. And it feels really good for a start to the year.
Well, thank you all so much for listening. We love showing up and doing this every month. It helps Andrea and I connect, and just the fact that you all love it and join into all these funny little journeys with us means the world. So we're here if you need any support during this incredibly wild time, but you've got it. Remember, it's the Strength card, the Fool card, some pages, but pages can be fun, right? Embrace that wild, crazy. Anyway, enough talking. We'll catch you guys next month. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.